Hello, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Well, welcome to this channel. Today we'll be learning about routers, switches, computers, the wires needed, and everything else. And by the end of this series, we're going to be making our own little network. So, before we start, I should at least tell you something about Cisco Packet Tracer. So, we're going to start with a router. So you can come here. Here's the routers. Here is the switch. Here's a hub. Here is a wireless device. Like there's a lot of wireless devices. Here's securities, firewalls, and then here is the wide area network. So we're first going to go with a router. So we're going to go. There are a lot of options here. A lot of routers here that you could choose from. But we will be going with the ISR4321 router. And this router is one of a kind. This is the physical, how it looks physically. This is how it looks. And these are all the various ports at the back here. This is the configuration, as in the general configuration, and this is attributes. I don't think this cost is the real cost, but you could Google it and search whether this is the actual cost, but in Packet Tracer this is the cost. So, and with the router you can actually configure the router, but the problem here is most of the times in the real world when you're configuring a router, you need a console cable. This is a console cable, and you need either a PC or a laptop. So with a console cable here, you can connect it, you can click, and you connect it to the fast Ethernet, and you connect it to the console on the router in order for you to configure it. Connect it to the R. So you don't connect it to the fast Ethernet. You connect it to the RS-232 on the computer. So through this, and you have to turn on your router first before you can actually start programming anything on it. So this is how you program it in the real world. You need a console cable connected to a PC or a laptop in order for you to be able to configure a router. But in Cisco Packet Tracer, you can actually configure it without the need for using a console cable or a PC or a laptop. You can configure it directly in the CLI, which is a command line interface. You can configure it here. So for you always click no to this. So this is how it looks when you configure it in the CLI, which is the command line interface. So, and before you configure it, when you see the sign here, it means you cannot configure anything. As in, nothing you type in is going to work. So let's say I type in configure terminal. It's not going to work because you're not in the configuration mode. So one will ask, how do you then get into the configuration mode? So to get into the configuration mode, you type enable, or for short, you can just type, let me go back and, or for short, you can just type EN, which is the shorter version of saying enable, so you can go faster or you can act like a pro. Well, you are a pro when you start working on routers and switches. So you type in EN to enable it, and although you've enabled it, you're not actually in the configuration state. You cannot actually configure anything. You have to actually be in something called config, which comes right next to the router. So the router, and then in the bracket they'll give you config. That's when you know that, oh, I'm in the configuration state. And to go into the configuration state, you can type, as I typed the first thing that I typed, configure terminal. But to make it short, you can go with config T, which sends you straight into the configuration mode. And right now, what I'm going to teach you today is how to change your name, your host name, which is currently default as router, how to change that into any name that you want. The name that I'll be going with is Kelly. So if I type hostname Kelly, and it changed from router to Kelly. So this is the first thing that there are a lot of things that you can do here, but this is the first thing that we are going to do. We're going to just learn about how to change host names and then how to get into config mode on a router. And actually, to make it even simpler, a switch also uses the same formula in order for you to get into this config mode. And a switch too could be used on Cisco Packet Tracer. You can actually do it at the CIL, but like in real life, you have to actually use a console cable. Alright guys, this is it for today. We're going to continue later. So we're going to take it step by step and then explain every feature and every device that we'll be using in our network. See you next time.